here. This, as Aaron has said, is the second conference. Why are we doing this? We want to get out good news of what football is doing right across different parts of the world. That was it. Nothing more than that. There's no sales, there's no nothing. It was purely all the good things that's going on and that football is doing to not only engage communities, but to help and assist. So this is why we did it. And we're really pleased to have with us, we've got the Saints Foundation, we've got the UEFA Foundation for Children with us, we've got the Liverpool FC Foundation, we've got Burton Albion Community Trust with us. So real interesting examples. And the idea, each one will give a presentation on what programs they're doing, so we can not only learn from them, but also be inspired as well. So we're really looking forward to hearing these stories. So I'm going to ask Greg just first of all to share his screen, and we're going to get straight into it as well. So first of all, I'd just like to introduce Greg from the Saints Foundation at Southampton Football Club. Greg will probably talk through who he is and his role when we go through. And Greg, I can confirm I can see your first screen introducing our work. So over to you. Thank you for joining us and speaking today.
No, fantastic. Thanks, Geoff, and thanks, Aaron, for the invitation to come along today. So I'm Greg Baker. I'm the head of Saints Foundation Community Partnerships at Southampton Football Club. You can see our crest in the background. And for those that don't know, Southampton Football Club is an English Premier League team playing now in the top flight for the last 10 years. Not quite as big as Liverpool, but hopefully an established Premier League team. And hopefully we're doing some really great stuff off the pitch. So the idea behind today is really just to give an overview about what we're doing in our local community, but also to shine a light on a couple of individual stories around some of our work, particularly with older people and with young people who might be struggling with offending and criminal behaviour. So yeah, before we start, let's just how do I get this to work? There we go. Right, have you got the second screen? Yeah, that's worked okay. Cool. So yeah, just before we start, just to introduce who we are and what we do. So Saints Foundation is the charity of Southampton Football Club, and we describe ourselves as the club's way of giving back. Importantly, it isn't only about giving back to the people that come and support us on a match day, although some of the fans are engaged in our programs, but it's about supporting the community much more holistically. So we will certainly work with older people and young people that will never set foot in this stadium and come and watch a game, because what we aren't is trying to be a marketing agency of the club. If there is a knock-on effect to the club support by what we do, then fantastic. But we are an organisation that really wants to make sure that we work around the needs of the city, and that isn't only for people that either play or support Southampton Football Club. So how we talk about ourselves at the moment, although we are actually kind of changing this up from a strategy perspective, is that we use the passion of the club. That's always our kind of our hook. Our way of engaging people is around the club, is around the club badge, is around the... Hello?
Oh, yeah. Just so everybody can just put their on mute and silent, that will be great. Thank you so much.
So yeah, so we use the hook of the club, the passion of the club as we describe it, to try and transform lives in and around Southampton. And we talk about doing three things: helping people to be more involved in their community, healthier and more empowered members of the community. So that's empowered to make decisions about their own lives, and empowered really to have aspirations for the future. So in terms of our projects, what is really clear to us is that we work on a needs basis. We work very, very closely with the City Council, with the police, with the Youth Offending Service, with various services around the city to decipher need. So there is some really great data around what the need of Southampton is with young people, with older people, with vulnerable adults, and we are working around that, but also around community engagement to really decide what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. So we are really focusing our support on those that need us most. So in the past, we have run football programs, and football programs are in terms of community football for young people to inspire them around the game. However, we've decided to move that across to the club. So the club now run that on a commercial basis. And what we do within our charity setting is effectively all of the needs-led work around some of the things that you'll hear about later. So the three areas of work that we focus on is firstly, as I say, involvement. So effectively making sure that everyone that might, for whatever reason, be slightly disenfranchised has a positive place in the community. So whether that's around people who might have disabilities, around young people that might be involved in the criminal justice system, to try and inspire them around a different direction. We phase a lot of our work around health, and that's mainly around older people, but increasingly around young people too. And that's effectively trying to give people the tools to lead healthier lives, to value their health, and effectively to thrive long into the future. And then around what we call empowerment, which is about inspiring people to achieve their potential by building confidence and self-belief. So a lot of those programs are within schools, and that's really about giving young people aspirations for the future. So we also fit into the club's sustainability strategy. So Southampton Football Club has a pretty comprehensive sustainability strategy called the Halo Effect, which is 4 segments around fan responsibility, so how we treat our fans fairly, around environmental responsibility, which is probably quite obvious, but how we do the right things to reduce our carbon footprint, to reduce our waste, to think about food waste on match day, around what we call corporate responsibility, so about being a good corporate citizen, doing things the right way, paying our taxations in the right way, etc., etc. And then also around social responsibility. So social responsibility is effectively, on the main, the things that we do in the local community about supporting the needs of the city. So there are additionals that the club do around social development, but actually most of that, whether that's around work with young people in schools, or whether that's around older people, or whether that's around work readiness for adults, is delivered by Saints Foundation on behalf of Southampton Football Club. So I guess to move on, I won't go into all of this, but as I say, all of our work is needs-led. So we don't do anything if ultimately there isn't a need within the city and someone hasn't identified that need, whether that's, as I say, through the police, the youth offending service, the city council, etc., etc. So Southampton is a great place to live. I would say that. I'm a proud Soutonian. I've lived here all my life. However, like any urban centre in the UK, has significant challenges, and some of those are shown on the screen in terms of the numbers of people that are living in some really deprived neighbourhoods, which, that isn't that important, but actually it's the knock-on effect of that that's important. So if people live in deprived neighbourhoods, they are more likely to be victims of crime, they're more likely to be victims of domestic abuse, they're less likely to progress in education, and they ultimately have a lower life expectancy. I think I'm right in saying that between 2 areas in Southampton that are probably a mile apart, there's about a 10-year difference in life expectancy. So what we see our role as being is effectively to try and level people up, for want of a use of a phrase that the government are using heavily at the moment, to effectively try and to be a positive impact on the effects of inequality within the city. So I won't go into those data, but you can see it all there in terms of some of the challenges that are for our city, but also for certainly most of the UK, and also certainly probably in lots of cases around the world too. So in terms of some key stats, so we run 18 different projects currently. We've got about 50 full-time members of staff, and that's growing over the years. We work with around 5,000 participants per year, and that will probably be very different to how the guys at Liverpool and Burton Albion run their programmes. We decide that we would prefer to work with smaller numbers for more intense time, rather than necessarily try to aim to work with lots of people for potentially some smaller time. So that's just our way of doing things. There's no right way, but we would be very much looking to work on an incentive basis with a smaller number of people. The age range of participants last year that we worked with was between 5 and 96. So that's right through from our primary schools programs through to our senior Saints programs that we'll come on to later. We turn over about £2.5 million a year, which is obviously completely independent of the club, almost all self-created money. And it's really important to state that around about £950,000 of that comes from the Premier League. We're incredibly lucky to be a member of the Premier League, and incredibly lucky to have the support of them and the Premier League Charitable Fund to support some of our programmes, which really is, we're so grateful for. So I think it's always worth calling out the Premier League, because they sometimes get a bit of a bad rap, and actually the reality is that they do some amazing stuff within their local communities, both for Premier League and for Football League clubs too. So our funding model, around about £2.5 million, as I say, to deliver our services. Loosely, that's made up of around about 75% from grants. So whether that's around the Premier League money, but also increasingly local money from the City Council, from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, from NHS Trust. I'll talk quite a lot about our NHS Trust work later, whether that's private donors, family trusts, etc., or whether national charities. So that's around about 75% of our money. Around about 25% of our money comes from fundraising. So we run things like charity dinners. We do a lot of work with local corporate partners who might then run a dinner on our behalf. We run eBay auctions of match-worn and match-issued shirts, etc. A lot of people do physical challenges, whether that's getting on a bike. We ran a challenge which was 13 cyclists did all 20 stadiums, starting in Newcastle down to Southampton over 8 days, raised about 75 grand for us, which is obviously fantastic and really makes an impact on our work. And then also lots of online initiatives, whether that's lotteries or whether that's fundraising campaigns. We also do benefit hugely from the link to the club, not necessarily always in cash value, albeit that there is often some cash that's given to us, but certainly in terms of in-kind support, access to shared services, the very fact that we're sat in this office for free, we get all of our IT support for free, legal support, payroll, IT, etc., and also links to corporate partners. We've done a number of activations in the last year or two with Hummel, with Sportsbet, with Vitality and various corporate partners, which is absolutely hugely valuable for our work. So just going to play a brief video before I talk about some of the specifics about what we do, which hopefully just should give you a flavour of the type of work we did. We made this for a 20-year campaign. We've just come out the back of our 20-year anniversary. So I'll play that quickly. Hopefully.
All right, lads, let's go then.
Hang on.
Saints Foundation, I love what they do. It's hard to put into words how much it means to me.
Saints Foundation has been a real lifeline for me.
I'm glad that we can use this milestone to reflect on the huge impact that Saints Foundation makes in our city.
I'm from Southampton, local lad. If I didn't find Saints Foundation at that time, I probably wouldn't be here today telling this story.
I'm just so grateful for what Saints Foundation have done for her and for us.
And a quarter and a 10th and a 20th and relaxer there.
You all right, lads? How are you doing today? Good? So, boys, if we just get a couple of balls just moving.
I've never felt I have a purpose in my life, to feel valued, to feel like I've got somewhere I belong.
That's what the foundation gives you.
Yeah.
I can get new friends, involved as well. I loved the company as well. I really loved it.
It was like an extended support network, an extended family.
In, up, down, out.
My life changed pretty much within weeks of doing Saints Works, really.
I'm getting to mentor kids that are like myself. They need someone to talk to, they need someone to look up to and support them and guide them, and I'm really proud and privileged that that can be me.
For me, the thing I've taken from all of that, you do so much.
I'm living.
You're living, that's exactly the words I was going to say. For you to say you're living.
When you're in the hole there, you feel like there's no getting out of that hole. And Saints Foundation, they almost chucked down some tools for me to build my own ladder and climb up. So if I ever fell back in that hole again, then I would know that I've got the right tools and I know how to get out of this hole.
I'm so proud being involved for 20 years.
I'm just so proud to be part of this absolutely incredible charity.
All right, lads, let's go.
Sorry. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour about what we do. You saw some of our ambassadors in there as well, so we're really grateful for support that we get from across the club. So Marianne Spacey-Cale, who you saw in the video, is our women's first team manager. She's a former England international. Ewan Thomas, a former Olympics 400-metre runner for Team GB, and then probably most recognisable, James Ward-Prowse is one of our ambassadors, and James is a great supporter of what we do, and we are very fortunate to get the support of the players for various activities. You know, COVID's obviously been a challenge, but a couple of times a week, normally players will come out and see some of our work and engage with our participants, which obviously, as you can imagine, for our participants is a really fantastic thing. So just in terms of giving a flavour about some of our programmes, I won't go into huge detail, but around our involvement projects is around, so Saints Ability, the first one works with young people and adults with both physical and cognitive disability, so a pan disability programme, so providing opportunities to play football, but also increasingly much more in terms of volunteering opportunities in terms of opportunities to get into work and really hopefully to be able to, where possible, live independent lives long into the future. So that is for both young people and for adults. Kicks, which is a programme that all of the Premier League clubs and Football League clubs run, variety of sporting and developmental opportunities, mainly through the playing of football for young people aged 8 to 19. A variety of venues across the city each week. We're running about 25 sessions a week in various locations, mostly in the evenings, linked in with the police around being at the right places at the right time to try to give young people a really positive opportunity where otherwise there might not be much to do and there might be some issues with antisocial behaviour or criminality, for example. Saint switching play I'll talk about later, and chances I'll talk about later, so I won't labour that one at the moment. And then we also run something called the National Citizenship Service, which for those that live in the UK, you'll be very aware of, which is a government scheme for young people after leaving school, which takes them away on a residential to give them the opportunity to meet people involved in new skills and really sort of take the first step into the next phase of their life, which might be college or might be onward training. So our projects around our health programme, again, I'll go into senior Saints and Falls recovery a little bit later. Those are our work mainly with older people, which is a real big facet of our work. But we also run something called Saints Goal, which is utilising the brand of the club to work with adult males over the age of 35, BMI of 28.1 or more, around using the brand and the pull of the club to instill a healthier lifestyle. So sessions run at the stadium, might be running up the stairs in the bowl of the stadium, might be doing their press ups in front of the dugouts, but really trying to bring the football club to those men's lives where ultimately they probably wouldn't engage in those services normally. Active Free Football is a programme funded by the Football Foundation, which is working in the shadow of the stadium in the local area here around supporting adults who might be physically inactive, around encouraging sustainable behaviour change for those people that might, for whatever reason, not be engaging in physical activity at the moment. And that is really about taking activity to them rather than expecting them to travel to other settings around the city. So how do you use the grass patch outside of their tower block to run aerobic sessions, for example, rather than expecting them to travel across the city to a session. And then Saints by Your Side is a programme that we're just about to launch, which is around supporting men aged between 20 and 55 who are struggling with their mental health, around both online and group intervention. So how do we use the website of the club to give clinically proven advice and guidance, but also we're going to be running sessions here for both what is called primary and secondary care groups for men who might be struggling for whatever reason with their mental health, again utilising the camaraderie that the club can bring to that group, but also the expertise that hopefully we have in the team to put people back on the right track. And then in terms of just completing the circle, really, in terms of the overview of our programmes, our empowerment area is largely around our work with children and young people in schools. So we run a Primary Stars programme, which again, most English clubs run, which we work in 16 primary schools. We have a member of staff that's in there 1 day a week for a full day, really helping identify children. So the school will identify those young people that need a bit of help with intervention. So whether that's around numeracy, literacy, whether that's around emotional well-being, whether that's about behaviour, around leadership, and we run those programmes on a day-by-day basis in schools around the city. Community Champions, we work alongside 9 of the 12 secondary schools in Southampton. That is a full-time programme. So, we have a full-time member of staff who's in the schools 4 days a week and then here on a Friday, who's providing mentoring support to young people who might be struggling within mainstream education. So again, delivered through group work sessions, one-to-one sessions, etc., etc. Inspires, we have full-time members of staff who work in what we call alternative school settings, so supporting young people in pupil referral units, which effectively is a unit that a young person who might, for whatever reason, not be able to cope with mainstream education around their behaviour, for example, will be sent to a pupil referral unit either for a short or a long period, and also within the 3 SEND schools, so the special educational needs schools, we have full-time members of staff within those, really working around trying to inspire those young people to achieve long into the future. And then the last programme, just to give a brief overview, is Saints Works, which is a programme for 16 to 25-year-olds who are not in education, employment or training. And these are the young people that are often the furthest away from the job market. So not the people that are leaving the local sixth form college with, some idea about what they want to do, but not quite there. This is about young people that might lack the motivation to get up in the morning. They might have some issues with personal relationships. They might have some issues with hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really trying to give the first steps into the job market for those young people. And then ideally to be able to link them into our programs in the longer term. So I guess, Matt's going to talk about the impact of Liverpool FC Foundation. So I won't talk massively about our methodology, but I think we use a similar methodology to what Matt's going to talk about. But across the course of the 21-22 season, we supported just over 4,500 participants for an average of about 21.5 hours each. As I said, the youngest participant was 5 and the oldest 96. And then really important to us is not necessarily the numbers of engagements, but it's about the numbers of participants that are reporting positive outcomes. So of those 4,522, 4,341 reported at least one positive outcome, which are things like they could do things that they couldn't do before after engaging with us. They're more physically active. They now feel more part of the local community. They feel happier more often. And also that, importantly for us, that they feel that our staff inspire them to do their best. So those are some of the measures of the many measures that we use to measure our impact. And then I guess, also, we do play a role in the local community too, not just with our participants. And obviously, we're very interested in how people perceive us locally. So we know from the end of season survey that 83% of Southampton Football Club fans feel that we make a positive impact in the community, and importantly for the club, they back us to the hilt. So 70% of those fans say that they like the club more because of what we do. I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we think that's the primary reason why they support the club. The primary reason will be around that traditional fandom, but actually if we can add to their love of the club, then all the better. So we know that is having a positive impact on some of our fans. 96% of wider Southampton Football Club staff feel that we represent the club well in the local community. So that's around about 400 people. And 92% of those feel more pride in working for the club because of it. And again, this isn't their primary reason for coming to work in the morning, but ultimately if they can feel more pride because of the good that the club is doing locally, then all the better. And then 100% of our corporate partners of the club strongly agree that the club's purpose is one of the key reasons why they chose to align with the club in the first place. So just in terms of going into a bit more detail into a couple of programs in the last 10 minutes or so. So the first one is around our work with young people who might, for whatever reason, be either on the cusp of offending or have offended. There's a stat that I've got at the top of the screen, which just over 50% of youth offenders in the city re-offend, which is significantly higher than the England average of 37%. So obviously, clearly there's an issue in Southampton about reoffending. So our response effectively is to run two programs, Saint Switching Play and Chances. So Saint Switching Play effectively is working with very, very, very small numbers, a caseload of around about 10 at any one period of time, who have been referred to us by the Youth Offending Service. So we work very much in partnership with those guys who will be dealing with high-end cases about young people that are prolific offenders, for example. And then Chances is a program that we have the opportunity to work with the local authority to identify 140 young people in the city who effectively they're a bit concerned about. So young people that might, for whatever reason, be the offenders of the future. So they might be the ones that are the next gang leaders. They might be the ones that are the next county line drug runners, et cetera, et cetera. So we are working with those in a proactive, preventative space to try to effectively turn that behaviour around. So in both of those programs, we engage through individual and group mentoring sessions, as well as providing a variety of positive activities. So whether that's around sports sessions or whether that's around developmental sessions, as well as a number of social action projects. So how do we use them to further the community in terms of whether they're running a project that might kind of impact on some of our other projects around older people, for example. So across that program, we engage with 108 young people across 1,626 individual sessions. So an individual session would be a football session, would be a developmental session, would be a mentoring session. So fairly high numbers of sessions, albeit low numbers of young people deliberately. and it is a bit too soon to give proper quantitative data on the programme. It's both are fairly new programmes to us, but there was a 2020 national evaluation by the University of Central Lancaster around breaking the cycle, which is a Premier League programme which we call switching play locally. And effectively there was some really positive stats there in terms of a reduction of 64% in criminal behaviour, 51% in antisocial behaviour, 50% reduction in the number of those young people that were engaged in the programme carrying a weapon, and a 25% reduction in gang affiliation, which when you times that by the number of young people that have been worked with across CCOs nationally, that's obviously some pretty big figures, and obviously the effect of getting that wrong can be catastrophic in terms of one person carrying a weapon, as we know, can have catastrophic effects. So there's a quote at the bottom from one of the young people, which I think really sums up what we're trying to achieve within this area of work, which says, everything in general, my mood, mental health, anger issues, like I'm rarely punching walls anymore. I also used to think carrying a knife made me powerful and thought I was hard, but it doesn't. It makes you weak. As soon as I go to the gym, which is some of the programs that we run, I feel like all of my anger and stress is out and I don't need to hurt anyone. I just put my gloves on and let it out. So that's kind of some of the tactics that we're using to engage young people. And then moving on just very quickly to our work with older people, which I think probably for some of you might be probably a bit more of a shock that we're working in this space. We think this is really important to be a wide-ranging service that's supporting the needs holistically of the city. So around 1 in 5 older adults in Southampton report feeling lonely every day, which is so sad in terms of people waking up and the TV is their only company and they might not see people from day to day. And we think that we can provide part of the solution to that issue. So we run Senior Saints, which engages adults over the age of 65 who have those risk factors around social isolation. So that might be that they live on their own. It might be they don't have any family support locally, and or low levels of physical activity. As we know, if people give up physical activity in older age, then that can quickly affect their health. So actually we try to play a role in really strengthening those older people to be able to age well and be able to live life to the fullest in their older age. So we offer what we call a 4-tier approach to physical activity, which includes social walks. So we run a number of walks out and about in local parks and local riverways on a regular basis. We run chair-based exercise sessions, group circuit classes, so low-level circuit classes, and also we do run some walking sport, walking football, walking cricket as well. So across the 21-22 season, we engaged 292 older adults in that project across 466 sessions, and really, hopefully, certainly impressively for me, participants engaged for 31 hours on average. So that's an aggregate hours of 9,042 hours across the board that older people engaged with us last year. And we know that has some really fantastic effects. So 50% of participants recorded an increase in their overall life satisfaction since taking part in the programme. So someone said it's the only time I get out in a week, otherwise I'd be sat inside a week. With 36% of participants became less lonely through taking part. So someone said there was a lot of impact, saved our lives from just sitting at home. And then 79% of participants agreed or strongly agreed that since attending the sessions, they've become more physically active, which obviously was one of our success measures. It's enjoyable, makes you realise that we can do exercise no matter what our condition or age, and it's sociable. So hopefully, again, that gives you some idea about the type of work that we're doing. And then just within our work with older people, we also are the provider, the sole provider in the city. So we went through a tender process alongside some fairly established older persons charities. We run the Falls Recovery Service for the city. So we're commissioned by the local clinical commissioning group to effectively run the contract, which effectively is that if an adult has fallen, that they are very much more likely to fall again. And obviously, not only does that have a catastrophic effect on their lives in terms of both the physical damage, but also the mental damage of the fear of going out, for example. But actually, it has a massive knock-on effect to NHS budgets. It costs an absolute fortune for people to go through that system. So effectively, if a person has fallen and they go to a GP surgery, they are referred to us to go through a strength and conditioning program. Or if someone goes to a GP surgery and effectively are seen as likely to fall, they again will be referred to us. So they are given a full NHS community independence service assessment, and a comprehensive falls assessment before they come to us. And that program engages across 12 weeks and then feeds those adults into our Senior Saints program for long-term activity. We engaged 150 older adults in that project across 274 sessions last year. And the outcomes, 67% of those who had a fall prior to taking part in falls recovery have not fallen again since taking part. Of those that have fallen since taking part, the proportion who had to go to hospital as a result of that fall is halved. So obviously there's a massive effect here on those individuals who have gone through the program to make themselves more physically healthy. But as it says at the bottom, there is also a real fear of falling again. A fear of falling first time round and then a fear of falling again as well. So 47% of our participants reported that they reduced their fear of falling through taking part. So it's had a huge impact on me, both physically and emotionally. I've worked really hard doing the exercises daily. And although I still have the odd fall, I'm far more confident when out and about with my posture and balance. The team that run these sessions are fabulous, very friendly, caring and supportive. And that's effectively what we're trying to do across all of our programs. So just to complete things, I'm just going to play a video which is an older participant of ours called Margaret, who's been engaging with us for a number of years within our older people's program, and hopefully she sums up some of the effect that we have on older people locally.
Good to get out and about now.
This is lovely.
Yeah.
My name is Margaret Cook. I've been engaging with the Saints Foundation now for, it must be 10 years or close to. When lockdown first hit, I was very, very upset because it meant as I normally do, I had nothing. Felt dreadful. And Saints Foundation came in as an absolute lifeline. Oh, this is lovely coming out here.
Sun's beaming right down us.
In the beginning stages, they all did different pieces of video, so you could still do the exercises.
So we're going to start by marching on the spot. The next exercise is going to be side bends.
The radio sessions bring another dimension, into my day.
This can be done by marching on the spot, in your chair or standing near your work surface.
Going on the walks, it's meeting people, meeting the different people. It's lovely. And of course the exercise. Okay, let's go a bit further. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been wonderful. You can take it at your own pace. I think everybody would benefit from something like this.
The longest I've walked for ages, and everyone made me so welcome. It was like meeting your family again.
Certainly been around, haven't you? It's a lifeline, Generally nice to talk to somebody different and feel good for it.
It's just to keep yourself mobile, and it helps your mental state, which is very good.
Without this support, I don't know what I would have done. I think I would have been quite lost, really. Miss them very, very much indeed. Yeah. They've helped me enormously. If you're thinking about donating, please do, to help Saint Foundation carry on doing the work that they're doing.
So, right, so that was it for me. So I'm aware that it's a real whistle-stop tour of what we do. Very happy at the end to field questions, or very happy to, if anyone wanted to talk more about some of the programs that we do around those various themes, then those are my details, and I'm more than happy to have a discussion. But I'll pass back to Geoff, I believe.
Yep, Greg, super job, really inspiring to see that activity, and I see there's already a question in for you, which we'll cover that off at the end. Very inspiring. Love the idea of the older people programs and how deep you're going into that, and love the idea of that risk offenders. Some really inspiring examples, and I know we're touching on it, but you give so much good detail in there as well, and I see some people applauding as well, which is good. So thank you so much. Again, this is us sharing all the great work, so we can see all the amazing stuff that football is doing, so we can share and learn together, but also be inspired.